High Observer Zixtal pressed his four-fingered hand against the observation deck's crystalline viewport, his iridescent scales reflecting the blue-green marble of Earth below. After 3 centuries of evaluating pre-spacefaring civilizations, he had never encountered such a confounding species. High Observer, you need to see this. His junior analyst, Veldra, manipulated the ship's quantum sensors with her neural interface. Another anomaly in human behavior patterns. The holoscreen flickered to life, showing a raging inferno consuming what humans called an apartment complex in a place designated as Mumbai. The flames painted the night sky orange, and toxic smoke billowed from shattered windows. Standard procedure for any rational species would be to evacuate and wait for emergency response units. But humans, once again, defied logic. Are they? Zixtal's inner eyelids flickered in disbelief, running back into the building. Affirmative, Veldra confirmed, her tone carrying the same bewilderment. These civilians have already reached safety, yet they're returning to danger. The 7th such incident we've recorded today. The feed showed 3 humans, their faces wrapped in wet cloth, charging back into the blazing structure. Moments later, they emerged carrying elderly residents and children. One rescuer's clothing had caught fire, but instead of stopping to extinguish it, he continued until his burden was safe. Update their risk assessment, Zixtal ordered, his scales shifting to a troubled shade of purple. Factor in this, self-destructive altruism. Veldra's neural interface pulsed as she added to their report. High Observer, this creates a paradox in our evaluation matrix. Their technological development suggests a Type 0.7 civilization, but their social behaviors don't match any known development patterns. Zixtal understood her concern. In the same day, their sensors had detected human nuclear weapons capable of planetary destruction, alongside remarkable advances in renewable energy. They had observed space stations orbiting their world, while millions of their species lived in poverty below. They waged wars over resources and beliefs, yet demonstrated unprecedented charity and cooperation in crisis. Play the educational facility recording, he commanded, needing to review the earlier footage that had first disturbed him. The holoscreen shifted to show a human learning center under attack by one of their own, wielding a primitive projectile weapon. But instead of fleeing, a human teacher had placed herself between the attacker and her students. The recording ended with her survival, but the willingness to face certain death for others challenged everything Zixtal understood about sentient behavior. Pull up the historical records, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Show me their progress over the last century. Data streams filled the air around him. Where other species took millennia to advance through technological stages, humans moved at an unprecedented pace. From first flight to lunar landing in mere decades. From basic computing to quantum processing in less than a century. Their rate of adaptation was beyond anything in the Council's archives. High Observer, Veldra's voice carried a note of tension. The Council expects our preliminary report in 3 orbital cycles. How do we classify them? They're simultaneously primitive and advanced, destructive and nurturing, divided and unified. Zixtal stared at the planet below, its night side now coming into view, cities glittering like scattered stardust. In 300 years of service to the Council, he had never submitted an inconclusive report, but humanity refused to fit any known pattern of civilization development. We tell them the truth, Veldra, he finally responded, his scales settling into a deep blue of resolution. That we have discovered a species that forces us to question every metric by which we judge advancement. And may the Council have wisdom to understand what that means for us all. As if to punctuate his words, another emergency unfolded on their screens below. And once again, humans rushed toward danger instead of away from it. Defying every logical model of self-preservation, the Council had established over millennia of observation. The Grand Chamber of the Cosmic Council hummed with nervous energy as 3,000 representatives from the galaxy's most advanced civilizations gathered for an emergency session. The crystalline dome above reflected the light of 3 suns, casting prismatic shadows across the assembled delegates. High Observer Zixtal stood at the center podium, his scales now an anxious shade of green as he faced the Council Supreme, 12 beings representing the founding species of their galactic order. "Distinguished Council," he began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber, "in 3 centuries of service, I have never submitted a report recommending immediate intervention. Until now." The holofields activated, surrounding the chamber with images of Earth. Cities sprawled across continents, vehicles clogged their roadways, and satellites cluttered their orbit. A chaotic contrast to the ordered development of Council worlds. "Humanity," Zixtal continued, "defies our understanding of civilizational evolution. They build weapons that could destroy their world, yet risk their lives to save single members of their species. They pollute their oceans while simultaneously developing technology to clean them. They—" "Get to the point, Observer," interrupted Supreme Counselor Axleth, her crystalline form catching the light. "Why have you called this emergency session?" Zixtal's scales rippled. "Because they're advancing too fast. This footage was recorded over just 50 of their years." The chamber filled with gasps and murmurs as the holofields showed humanity's progression. From primitive combustion vehicles to primitive spacecraft, from basic digital networks to quantum computing, from fossil fuels to fusion experiments. "Impossible," declared Counselor Trin, their gelatinous form bubbling with agitation. "No species can advance this quickly without outside intervention. Your data must be flawed." "The data is verified," Zixtal countered. "But that's not what truly concerns me. Watch this." The holofields shifted to show humans in various crisis situations, firefighters rushing into burning buildings, scientists testing dangerous experimental technologies on themselves, soldiers throwing themselves on explosives to save others. "They embrace chaos," Zixtal explained. "They don't wait for perfect solutions. They try, fail, adapt, and try again. Their chaos drives their advancement." The chamber erupted in argument. Some counselors floated from their seats in agitation, while others merged into collective forms to better process the information. Thousands of years of ordered galactic civilization faced a fundamental challenge to their understanding of progress. Supreme Counselor Axleth raised her crystalline appendage for silence. "Your recommendation, High Observer." Zixtal's scales shifted to deep purple. "Quarantine. Not for our protection, but for theirs. Humanity is not ready for." A commotion at the chamber's entrance cut him short. Junior Observer Velra burst through the security field, her scales pulsing urgent red. "High Observer, Counselors, we've detected unauthorized ships entering Earth's system. Meridian energy signatures." The chamber exploded into chaos. The Meridians, known for their resource extraction operations, had been banned from Council space centuries ago for their brutal exploitation of developing worlds. "How did they find Earth?" Axleth demanded. "They must have intercepted our observation data," Zixtal realized, his scales now ash-gray. "While we debated, they acted." "This changes nothing," Trin declared. "The Meridians will demonstrate why primitive species must be contained. Let them serve as an example." But Zixtal remembered the humans' unpredictability, their impossible adaptability. "Counselors, you don't understand. If the Meridians attack Earth, they won't find easy prey. They'll find something unprecedented." "You forget yourself, Observer," Axleth warned. "The Meridians possess technology centuries beyond Earth's capability. And humans possess something we've forgotten," Zixtal countered. "The ability to do the impossible simply because no one told them they couldn't." The chamber's lights flickered as the first reports from Earth's system began streaming in. The Meridian ships had made contact with human defense forces, and for the first time in Council history, a quarantine vote would come too late. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Dauntless, her eyes fixed on the tactical display where 3 objects violated every known law of physics. They had appeared at the edge of lunar orbit, decelerating from impossible speeds without burning up or spreading debris. "Talk to me, Martinez," she ordered her science officer, keeping her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Lieutenant Martinez's fingers danced across his holographic interface. No match with any known signatures, Captain. Mass readings are off the charts, but they're smaller than anything that should have that kind of density. And they're heading straight for Mumbai. Mumbai. Still recovering from the devastating fires last week. 8 million people in the metropolitan area. Chen's jaw tightened. All hands, she commanded, her voice carrying through the ship's neural interface. Battle stations. This is not a drill. The Dauntless hummed as its experimental fusion drive spooled up. They were humanity's best shot at intercepting whatever was bearing down on Earth, a prototype defender carrying technology that half the scientific community had declared impossible last year. Captain, her XO, Commander Jackson, spoke up. We're picking up an energy signature. They're trying to communicate. The bridge's main display crackled to life, revealing a being that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a deep-sea anglerfish. Its bioluminescent patches pulsed as it spoke in perfectly synthesized English. Primitive vessels, clear our approach vector. This world has resources we require. Resist, and we will eliminate your population centers one by one. Chen's mind raced. First contact with an alien species, and they were already threatening genocide. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You are entering protected space. State your intentions or we will be forced to. The alien's response was a lance of energy that vaporized a defunct satellite nearby. You have no concept of force. Primitive. Your entire species' energy output equals one of our harvesters' daily consumption. Stand down. Chen's fingers tightened on her command chair. The alien was right. Conventional weapons would be useless. But conventional wasn't humanity's style. Martinez, she said quietly, remember that theory you had about using the solar wind as a particle accelerator? The science officer's eyes widened. Captain, that was just a hypothesis. We never tested it. No time like the present. Chen opened a channel to engineering. Chief Wong, I need you to reverse the polarity on our magnetic shields and dump all power from non-essential systems into them. We're going to catch some solar wind. That'll fry half our systems, Wong protested. Better than letting them fry Mumbai, Chen replied. Jackson, plot an intercept course that puts us between them and the sun. Martinez, start calculating solar wind velocities. We're going to show our visitors why you don't underestimate primitives. The Dauntless moved into position, its experimental shields already starting to glow from the strain. The Meridian ships approach, their weapons charging. They're launching some kind of energy weapon, Jackson reported. Now, Martinez. The Dauntless's shields inverted, catching the solar wind like a sail catching a hurricane. Charged particles accelerated through the ship's magnetic field, combining with the incoming Meridian weapon's energy. The result was a cascade of plasma that no engineer had ever designed, no physicist had ever predicted, and no alien had ever expected. The lead Meridian shift shields collapsed under the onslaught of solar plasma. The other two vessels broke formation, their confidence shattered by the impossible tactics of their primitive opponents. Direct hit, Jackson shouted. One enemy ship disabled, the others are retreating. Chen allowed herself a small smile as emergency crews rushed to contain the damage to their overtaxed systems. Send a message to Earth Defense Command. Tell them first contact has been made, and humanity stands ready. As the Meridian ships fled back toward deep space, they transmitted one final message. The Council will hear of this. Good, Chen responded, though they were already gone. They should know exactly what they're dealing with. The Grand Archives of the Cosmic Council had never been so crowded. Young scholars from a dozen species huddled around holoprojectors, watching the leaked footage of the Dauntless's battle for the 1000th time. Despite the Council's attempts to suppress the information, the image of a primitive ship wielding a star itself as a weapon had spread across the galaxy like a viral thought. Archivist Kitten, Her crystalline form, clouded with concern, observed the gathered youth from her elevated platform. In her 600 years of maintaining the archives, she had never seen such disorder. "Look there." A young Axolian scholar pointed his tendril at the projection. "They didn't even know if it would work. They just tried it." "Impossible," muttered his quantum mathematics professor, though his oscillating membrane betrayed his fascination. The calculations alone should have taken weeks. Kitten glided closer, her curiosity overwhelming her professional detachment. The gathered students had started doing something unprecedented. They were arguing about the established laws of physics. But what if our equations are too rigid? A Neuraxian student's synaptic clusters pulsed with excitement. Humans seem to operate on the principle of close enough rather than perfect certainty. In the weeks since the Meridian incident, the archives had been flooded with requests for human historical data. The Council's observation records, meant to document a primitive species, had become the most sought-after files in the galaxy. Kin's crystalline surface rippled as she received another priority message from the Council: more restrictions on human information access, more warnings about the dangers of chaotic thinking. But it was too late. In the medical wing of the archives, a group of young healers watched footage of human emergency responses. Their traditional methods relied on perfect conditions and carefully controlled environments. But humans performed surgery in battlefield conditions, invented techniques on the spot, and sometimes succeeded through sheer determination where sophisticated technology failed. "They lost so many," said a young medical student, their healing tentacles writhing in distress at the sight of human casualties. "But they saved so many more," responded another. "And each failure taught them something new." Kihin received another alert. In the engineering section, students had begun experimenting with improvised solutions, a concept that sent shivers through her crystalline matrix. The Council's engineering principles had remained unchanged for millennia. They were perfect, optimized, beyond improvement. Yet here was footage of the UES Dauntless, turning a star's own energy into a weapon with technology that should have been centuries beyond their capability. Not through perfect understanding, but through what humans called educated guesses and calculated risks. A commotion near the cultural studies section drew her attention. Students had discovered human entertainment broadcasts, their movies and video games, stories that posed impossible scenarios and challenged viewers to imagine solutions. The concept of fiction itself was causing a minor revolution among species that had always dealt solely in absolutes. Archivist Kitten. Her assistant's urgent harmonic resonated privately. "The Council demands we shut down the human studies section immediately. They say it's causing dangerous levels of independent thinking." But as Kitten surveyed the archives, she saw something she had never witnessed in 6 centuries: genuine innovation. Young scholars were questioning assumptions, combining disciplines in unauthorized ways, and most shockingly, failing at experiments only to try again with new approaches. She sent a response to the Council that would probably end her career. "The contamination has spread beyond containment. The youth have been exposed to human thinking. They're beginning to ask why not instead of simply accepting what is." In the center of the archives, the battle footage played again. The Dauntless, impossibly small against the void, catching the solar wind like an ancient sailing ship. A primitive vessel doing what the Council had deemed impossible, not through perfect technology, but through the uniquely human combination of desperation, innovation, and the refusal to accept limitations. The galaxy was changing, and no amount of Council regulations could stop it now. Supreme Counselor Haxeleth's crystalline form trembled with barely contained fury as she reviewed the latest reports from Earth. Just 6 months after the Meridian incident, human civilization had achieved what should have been impossible. "Explain this," she demanded of the holographic projection of High Observer Zixtal, his scales now a deep shade of midnight blue. "How have they already decoded Meridian shielding technology?" "Not just decoded, Zixtal corrected, his voice carrying a note of what almost sounded like pride. They've improved it. The salvaged Meridian vessel's shield matrix was based on hexagonal energy patterns. Humans discovered that octagonal configurations increased efficiency by 37%. The emergency chamber of the Council's containment fleet buzzed with agitated energy as the other 11 Supreme Councilors processed this information. Through the viewport, Earth hummed like a jewel in space, now surrounded by a faint iridescent bubble, a planetary shield that shouldn't exist for at least another century. Impossible, declared Councilor Inks Trin, their gelatinous form roiling. They're receiving outside help. The Meridians must have. The Meridians are still in containment, interrupted Zixtal. And humans achieve this through a method we've never considered. They'd release the technology specifications to the public. They what? Axleth's crystal structure fractured slightly in shock. They call it open source development. Instead of restricting research to elite institutions, they allowed millions of their scientists, engineers, and even amateur enthusiasts to work on the problem simultaneously. They turned technological development into a collaborative global effort. The containment fleet's sensors pinged a warning. A small human vessel was approaching their position. The council members watched in stunned silence as the ship's energy signature appeared on their screens, a perfect fusion of human and Meridian technology, yet somehow more efficient than either. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Dauntless Eye. A transmission cut through their secure channels with embarrassing ease. You're currently in Earth-protected space. State your intentions. Axleth gestured sharply, cutting off the transmission. They dare. We who have guided galactic civilization for 50,000 years. Supreme Councilor, Zixtal's voice carried an urgent warning. Look at their weapon signatures. They're not just using Meridian technology. They're using principles we've never seen before. They're chaos. It's not chaos at all. It's a form of innovation we forgot was possible. Another alarm blared. The sensors showed more human ships emerging from behind Earth's moon, each with unique energy signatures. They hadn't mass-produced identical vessels. They'd encouraged design diversity, creating a fleet where every ship could adapt different strategies. Containment is no longer possible, Zixtal continued. In trying to suppress them, we've only proven that humans thrive most when faced with challenges. Perhaps it's timely. Enough. Axleth's crystal form pulsed with angry light. Deploy the containment field. We will not allow this disorder to spread further into our galaxy. The containment fleet's massive ships moved into position, their ancient engines humming as they prepared to generate a quantum isolation field around the entire solar system. It was a measure used only twice in Council history, designed to cut off an entire civilization from the rest of space. But as the field began to form, their sensors screamed in protest. The humans weren't trying to stop them. Instead, the Earth's new planetary shield was resonating with the containment field, somehow amplifying and reflecting it. Impossible, Axleth whispered again, but the word had lost its conviction. No, Zixtal corrected gently. Human. They haven't just adapted Meridian technology. They've fundamentally reimagined how it works. And now they're using our own containment field to power their planetary defense system. The council members watched in horrified fascination as their perfect orderly plan dissolved in the face of human ingenuity. And on the Dauntless Ooze Bridge, Captain Chen allowed herself a small smile as she transmitted a simple message to the council fleet. Perhaps it's time we talked about humanity's place in the galaxy. As equals, the Singapore Global Conference Center had been transformed for humanity's first official contact with the Cosmic Council. Holographic displays lined the walls, showing millions watching worldwide, while quantum stabilizers maintained a variety of alien-friendly atmospheres within the chamber. Captain Sarah Chen stood beside the United Earth diplomatic team, her new dress uniform carrying a subtle pattern of circuitry, a reminder of how far humanity had come since the Meridian incident. Across the table sat Supreme Councilor Axleth, Her crystalline form now shot through with stress fractures, alongside High Observer Zixtal, his scales shifting between deep purple and midnight blue. Before we begin these negotiations, Axeleth's translated voice carried across the chamber. We demand an explanation for your violation of natural development patterns. Dr. Amara Patel, Earth's chief xenorchaeologist, stepped forward. Her eyes gleamed with the excitement of discovery as she activated a holographic display between the delegations. Actually, Counselor, we have a different question. Why did you violate your own? The hologram showed genetic sequences, thousands of them, stretched across millennia. Axeleth's crystalline structure vibrated in what Chen had learned to recognize as alarm. Where did you get this data? The counselor demanded. From your own archives, Dr. Patel replied. Once we understood your encryption patterns, we didn't just study your technology. We studied you, all of you, and we found something fascinating. The genetic sequences began to align, showing a clear pattern of deliberate modification across every council species. What had once been variations, mutations, and natural adaptations had been systematically edited out. You engineered yourselves, Dr. Patel continued, not for advancement, but for stability. You removed the very characteristics that had driven your early development: creativity, adaptability, the willingness to take risks. You chose perfect order over potential chaos. It was necessary. Axeleth's voice carried a strange resonance. Our civilizations were tearing themselves apart with constant change, constant conflict. We chose peace. You chose stagnation, Chen found herself saying, earning a sharp look from her diplomatic superior. But she continued, you forgot that conflict can drive innovation, that chaos can breed creation. Zixtal moved forward, his scales rippling with emotion. She's right. I studied human history extensively now. Your world wars were horrific, but they drove medical advancements that saved billions. Your Cold War was terrifying, but it pushed you into space. Even your environmental crisis spurred the development of technologies we had never conceived. And now you threaten our order, Axeleth declared. Your chaos will spread. It already has, interrupted a new voice. The chamber's doors opened to reveal Archivist Kitten, accompanied by a group of young council species scholars. The next generation has seen humanity's potential. They're already asking questions we forgot could be asked. The young scholars moved forward, each carrying evidence of innovations sparked by human influence. New medical techniques that valued improvisation alongside precision. Engineering principles that embraced creative solutions rather than just optimal ones. Art that explored possibilities rather than just recording facts. Impossible, Axeleth whispered, but the words sounded hollow. No, Dr. Patel said gently. Natural. Look at your own genetic history. Before the engineering, before the pursuit of perfect order, your species were like us. Chaotic, creative, constantly evolving. You didn't reach a peak. You just stopped climbing. The chamber fell silent as centuries of certainty cracked like Axeleth's crystalline surface. Chen watched the Supreme Counselor's form shift through various patterns of light, a visible representation of internal conflict. Finally, Zixtal spoke. Perhaps this is why we were drawn to study Earth in the first place. Not to judge your advancement, but to remember our own. The young scholars moved closer to the human delegation, their various forms expressing excitement in a dozen different ways. And in that moment, Chen realized they weren't just negotiating humanity's place in the galaxy. They were offering the Council a chance to remember who they used to be. The attack came without warning. One moment, the Singapore Global Conference Center was hosting the most important diplomatic meeting in human history. The next, quantum-tipped warheads were streaking through Earth's atmosphere, somehow bypassing the planetary shield. They're using our own emergency protocols against us. Zixtal's scales flashed crimson as he accessed the Council's network. Counselor Engstrin and the Hardline faction, They've activated override codes from the first generation. Captain Chen was already moving, neural link connecting to the dauntless eye. How many ships? 37 Council warships, her XO reported through the link. All first-generation technology. They're targeting every major population center simultaneously. The chamber erupted in chaos. Supreme Counselor Axeleth's crystalline form vibrated with fury at the betrayal, while Archivist Kitten tried to coordinate with her young scholars to find weaknesses in the ancient weapons. We can't shoot them down, Chen realized, watching the tactical display. They're using quantum entanglement to exist in multiple states simultaneously. If we destroy one manifestation, the others become real. Dr. Petal rushed forward, her eyes wild with inspiration. But what if we don't try to destroy them? What if we change their nature instead? Chen understood immediately. Martinez, she called through her neural link. Remember that theory about quantum state manipulation you were discussing with the Neuraxian scholars? Captain, that was just theoretical physics over dinner. We've never. Now's the time to test it. Upload the calculations to the planetary shield. All of them. Even the ones you thought were impossible. Across Earth, human quantum computers spun up to full power, their processors working in parallel with millions of network devices. Citizens from Mumbai to Montreal opened their personal computers, contributing processing power to the planetary defense grid in a massive crowd-computed solution. The hardline Council fleet pressed their attack, their perfect formations never varying, their tactical algorithms unchanged for millennia. They expected resistance. They expected defiance. They didn't expect laughter. Through every communication channel, across all frequencies, humans began broadcasting their entertainment. Movies showing impossible victories, games demonstrating outrageous strategies, stories of triumph against overwhelming odds. The quantum warheads, designed to exist in multiple states, found themselves bombarded not with counterweapons, but with infinite possibilities. Their quantum matrices are destabilizing, Martins reported with disbelief. The warheads are. They're trying to exist in all the states humans can imagine, not just the ones they were programmed for. The weapons began to falter, their perfect quantum states corrupted by exposure to humanity's boundless creativity. Some transformed into harmless light shows. Others simply winked out of existence, their programming overwhelmed by possibilities their creators had never conceived. Impossible. Angstrin's transmission boomed across all channels. You cannot defeat perfection with chaos. Watch us, Chen responded, as the dauntless Aya led Earth's defense fleet into position. But instead of attacking, the human ships surrounded their opponents in a spiral formation. You could destroy us now, Angstrin observed, their gelatinous form rippling with confusion. Why do you hesitate? Because that's not who we are, Chen replied. You tried to eliminate your capacity for change, but we've embraced ours. We can choose to be better than our instincts. The chamber fell silent as humans demonstrated something the Council had forgotten millennia ago. The ability to choose mercy over vengeance, growth over perfection. Your weapons are disabled, Chen continued. Your tactical advantage is gone. But we're not offering surrender. We're offering a chance to remember what it means to evolve. The hardline Council ships hung in space, their perfect formations now seeming rigid rather than impressive. And in that moment, watching ancient warships surrounded by Earth's improvised defense fleet, something shifted in the galaxy's oldest civilization. They faced a choice between perfect order and infinite possibility, between the peak they had chosen and the heights they had never dared to explore. And for the first time in millennia, they chose to change. 5 years after the failed hardline attack, the Cosmic Council chamber bore little resemblance to its former self. Gone were the rigid arrangements and perfect symmetry, replaced by a flowing architecture that combined order and chaos in breathtaking new forms. Species that once maintained strict separation now mingled freely, their different atmospheric needs handled by personal field generators, a human innovation that had revolutionized interspecies interaction. High Observer Sixtal, his scales now permanently settled into a shade of deep blue that reflected contentment, stood beside Captain Chen, now Admiral Chen. As they watched the graduation ceremony of the first class of the Earth-based Galactic Innovation Academy. "Did you ever imagine this?" Chen asked, gesturing to where young crystalline students were excitedly showing their gelatinous classmates a new form of quantum communication inspired by human music. "Never," Zixtal admitted. "In 3 centuries of observation, I never dreamed that studying Earth would end up changing us more than it changed you." The chamber's central platform, illuminated as Supreme Counselor Axleth, began the ceremony. Her crystalline form, once rigidly geometric, now incorporated organic patterns that shifted with her emotions, a transformation that symbolized the Council's evolution. "When we first encountered humanity," Axleth's voice carried across the chamber, "we saw them as primitive, their chaos as a threat. We had forgotten that our own civilizations were born in chaos, shaped by the very adaptability we had engineered away. Today we remember not just who we were, but who we can become." In the audience, Dr. Patel sat with Archivist Kitten, both of them surrounded by students eagerly sharing research that would have been forbidden just years ago. The archives, once a repository of perfect knowledge, had become an incubator of new ideas. "The human concept of open source has transformed our understanding of progress," Axleth continued. "We no longer seek a single perfect solution, but celebrate the diversity of approaches that leads to true innovation." Through the chamber's transparent dome, Earth was visible in the distance, its planetary shield now a model for a new type of defensive technology, one that adapted and evolved in response to threats rather than remaining static. But more impressive were the ships moving between Earth and the Council worlds, each one unique, combining technologies and ideas from dozens of species. But perhaps humanity's greatest lesson, Axleth's voice softened, was not their technology or their adaptability, but their capacity for mercy. When given the power to destroy their enemies, they chose instead to offer understanding. Former Counselor Inks Trin, their gelatinous form now teaching a class on adaptive problem-solving, nodded in agreement. Their failed attack had led not to their destruction, but to their redemption. Chen felt a familiar tingle as her neural link activated. "Admiral," Martinez's voice came through. Still excited after all these years, the first test of the interdimensional exploration drive was successful. The Human Council Joint Team managed to stabilize the quantum field using that game theory approach we discussed. Zixtal's scales rippled with amusement as he overheard. Another impossible achievement. "No," Chen smiled, "just humans and Council species working together, asking why not instead of accepting limitations." As the ceremony concluded, the chamber filled with a sight that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. Humans and aliens celebrating together, sharing ideas, planning futures that combine the best of both their natures. The rigid perfection of the Council had merged with human adaptability to create something entirely new. "You know," Zixtal mused, watching a young human teach a crystalline student about jazz, while a gelatinous scholar explained quantum harmonics to them both. "We thought we had reached the peak of civilization. We never realized that the peak was not a destination, but a choice. The choice to keep climbing, keep exploring, keep evolving." Chen looked out at the stars, where countless possibilities awaited species that had remembered how to imagine them. "The universe is infinite," she said, "and now so are we." The galaxy had changed, and together they would keep changing it, one impossible achievement at a time.